We have this really simple way of looking at the world. Daytime is for work, for getting things done, for making energy. And nighttime? Well, that's for rest. It's for recovery. It's like a universal off switch for life. But what if I told you that for some of the most important life on this planet, that's just completely wrong? I'm talking about plants, of course. We see them all day, soaking up the sun, doing their thing. But when the lights go out, do they just shut down? Is it really just a passive waiting game until sunrise? I mean, it seems to make sense, but the actual science tells a very, very different story. Because you see, for a plant, the dark isn't an off switch at all. It's a completely different kind of on switch. It's a time of really intense, super calculated biological activity. So, and this is the key, darkness is just as important, just as active as daylight, but for a totally different set of jobs. So to really wrap our heads around this, we've got to bust that myth of the passive, sleeping plant. We have to completely reframe how we think about what happens after sunset. Now, I love this metaphor from the source material. Think of a plant like a busy factory. The daytime, the photoperiod, that's the main production line. It's the engine of production, just cranking out sugars with photosynthesis. But the nighttime, the scotoperiod, well, that's the sophisticated second shift crew. It's the engine of allocation, deciding where all those sugars need to go, and differentiation, deciding what the plant is actually going to become. So let's look at that first big job for the night shift, managing the energy budget. How exactly does a plant spend all that sugar it works so hard to make during the day? Okay, get ready for this number, because it's pretty wild. Every single night, a cannabis plant burns through between 30 and 60% of all the carbon it captured during the day. That's a huge expense. This isn't saving up for a rainy day. This is a massive active spending spree, and it's all thanks to a process called dark respiration. So photosynthesis uses light to create sugar. Dark respiration, on the other hand, is the process of burning those sugars to create something called ATP. And ATP is basically the energy cache of the cell. It's what the plant uses to pay for everything. Basic maintenance, building new leaves and stems, and even pulling nutrients up from the roots, all night long. And check this out, it shows you just how sensitive that spending is. The whole process is hugely dependent on temperature. On a nice, cool night, the plant burns through its reserves at a smart, steady pace. But on a really warm night, whoa, that burn rate just skyrockets. The plant can actually burn through its entire daily savings way too fast, basically running out of fuel before the sun even comes back up. So the plant is busy spending its energy all night, but the night shift is way smarter than just that. It's also counting. It is meticulously, carefully measuring the exact length of the darkness to make one of the biggest decisions of its life. When is it time to flower? The secret to this is an amazing light-sensitive pigment called phytochrome. It comes in two flavors. During the day, sunlight flips it into its active form, PFR, which acts like a brake, actively stopping the plant from flowering. But then, in the dark, this PFR form slowly, steadily, and predictably reverts back to the inactive PR form. It's like a tiny, perfect molecular hourglass. And that hourglass kicks off this beautiful chain reaction, all in total darkness. So the long night begins, and PFR starts turning back into PFR. Once enough of it is converted, and the PFR level drops below a certain point, the brake on flowering is released. This allows a key protein, called CO, to finally build up. This CO protein then flips a switch on another gene, which sends out the go flower signal, called FT, from the leaves all the way to the tips of the branches. And that's the message that says, okay, stop making leaves, it's time to make flowers. All right, so beyond all this crazy internal chemistry, the night shift is also doing some serious physical labor. I'm talking about some major growth spurts and, you're not going to believe this, a surprising amount of sipping water. Right when flowering begins, a lot of plants go through this massive growth spurt we call the stretch. And guess when most of it happens? Yep, at night. It's all driven by a big surge of growth hormones, but it's not random. It is a completely strategic move to push those future flower sites as high up as possible to get the best access to sunlight later on. And that brings us to the sip. Now, wait a minute. We all learned that plants close their little pores, their stomata, at night to save water. So why on earth would a plant waste that precious resource by basically breathing it out into the dark? Well, here's our first clue. It turns out they don't slam the doors completely shut. As you can see here, the stomata are just partially open at night. And the driving force is different too. During the day, water's pulled by sunlight and something called VPD,
which is just a fancy term for how dry the air is. But at night, it's only the dryness of the air doing the pulling. This creates a slow, steady, but absolutely critical flow of water through the plant. But again, why?
And here it is. This is the big aha moment. It's a nutrient pipeline. See, certain nutrients, like calcium, are what we call immobile. The plant can't just move them around wherever it wants. They can only travel in one direction, up from the roots, carried by the flow of water. So that little bit of nighttime sipping is a vital delivery service, pulling essential building blocks like calcium up to all that new growth happening in the dark.
So, now that we're in on these secrets of the night, we can see how people have actually learned to put this knowledge to work. If you understand the night, you can actually control the plant.
Take this technique called a night break. Growers can stop a plant from flowering simply by flashing a light on it for just a few minutes in the middle of the night. That tiny little interruption is all it takes to reset that phytochrome hourglass, fooling the plant into thinking the night was never long enough to start flowering. It's super effective, but there's a trade-off. You can mess with that all-important energy budget we talked about.
And when I say the plant is sensitive to light, I mean it. Check out this number. A light level this low, and we're talking about a brightness that's comparable to a full moon, is enough to throw off this entire delicate process. The takeaway here is crystal clear. For these plants to flower properly, they need absolute, complete, uninterrupted darkness. And really, this quote from the research just says it all, doesn't it? A plant's success in the world isn't just about how well it can make energy during the day. It is every bit as dependent on how efficiently it runs its complex, active, and absolutely essential night shift. So darkness isn't just empty time. It's a whole other world with a whole different set of rules and jobs to do, which kind of leaves you with one final thought. If the night is this ridiculously busy for a plant, what other incredible hidden processes are happening all around us and all the other organisms we just assume are resting?